This is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. We're here on PlayStation 5 taking a look at this new current gen upgrade and or new version of the game that is going to now be available. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So we have a few different split sections for this particular review. First, talking a bit about the performance options, as there are a few different modes, then talk about new features, and then generally overall what the game has to offer. Now you have to keep in mind that this is a game that is not really that old. I mean, it's been a number of years, but I do feel that there is really diminishing returns in regards to this remaster. It really is something that is for players that have never experienced this game before, or for those that feel like they just can't quite get enough. So the game does have a few different options, a field of view, film grain options, motion blur adjustments, and then technically 4 different visual settings that you can choose between. But they're kind of split down mainly between 2 options, the first being performance and the second being fidelity. So this is where things kind of get a little bit more intensive. If you do have a 120 hertz of VRR enabled display, you can take things further. So we got fidelity, we're kind of showing that off. So fidelity, what is that? That's kind of your full 4K 30 FPS. If you uncap that, it's like a 40 FPS target, a bit of an uncapped situation there. And I would say that if you can handle basically a 40 FPS option, it's kind of nice. Like, I've actually been warming up to 40 FPS over this generation, or well, really wasn't quite familiar that this would be something we'd be having in games at the beginning of this generation. But yeah, I kind of like it because it's a little bit better than 30 FPS. It's a little bit more fluid, it's a little bit nicer. But yeah, when you do bump up and you go to that performance mode and you get that 60 FPS, it is a world of difference. So for performance, it's 1440p, 60 FPS. If you uncap it, it can theoretically go all the way up to 120 FPS, but it's probably going to be more like 80-ish, 90-ish if you're kind of lucky, just because it is a visually demanding experience. So that's what you're seeing here, is the 120 hertz mode in action. Now keep in mind, I can't record 120 FPS. You can't see it because YouTube doesn't support it. And when I am recording and playing at the 120 FPS mode, just to kind of show that at the beginning there, the PlayStation 5, in order to record it, because I have to do a different way to record it when you're getting to this high level frame rate, drops the resolution down to 1080p. But if you're playing it regularly, it's going to be that higher resolution. So if you are wondering about anything weird for this particular mode and what you're seeing here, it is mostly an idea of like what the visual quality is, but it is very fluid and it is a noticeable bump up from 60 FPS. It's just not necessarily like a full 120 FPS, but I mean, you're kind of getting like, again, diminishing returns to some degree once you get up into those higher frame rates of like 100 something FPS. But I mean, I think you're going to like this option, even though it is a bit of a bump down if you like super fluid experiences. I would say personally though, when I'm really looking at this game overall, I think you're going to be pretty comfortable with the 4K, well, 1440p 60 FPS performance mode, and then it, it upscales and whatnot. But yeah, I think that is the most comfortable way to kind of get this bridge between, I guess you would say, fluidity and just regular gameplay. If there's anything weird with the footage, again, that's just kind of how it's recorded. It doesn't actually look like that when you're playing it as smooth and everything like that. I don't know if it's a video editing thing kind of popping up like this, or something weird with how the PlayStation DVR or whatever records. Just keep that in mind. It's not a console thing. The console runs it really beautifully and quite well. Game mode and everything like that makes stuff awkward. Or also, again, you can go with the balanced mode, which is, that full 4K, 40 FPS. I think that one might be rather intriguing to you if you have that sort of option. But that's the beauty of it now on the console, is getting the option to switch between different things and kind of see what you like. Just keep in mind, you do need a TV that supports 120. It supports the VRR, which is a variable refresh rate, and then you're good to go. The game also has HDR support if you have a screen that is enabled for that sort of thing, and we've got the improvements to the controller and the feeling of the experience, but we'll talk about that a little bit in a sec here because I want to go over some of the new features. So there is the rogue mode, but let's take a look at some of the extras. So you can get various outfits for 2 characters, Ellie, Abby, or at least the 2 characters I have available here, and then some skins for guns and stuff like that. And then you are able to unlock additional characters for the rogue mode. So yeah, this is just kind of like an extras menu where they've got some new like toys that you can kind of play with, some new things. That includes like guitar free play. There's a filter gallery of options so you can change how the game looks in order to play. And you kind of unlock it with these like points you have. So you earn points and you do the rogue mode and you get like these points and then you can use them to like unlock stuff. And there's also like gameplay modifiers if you want to change up the gameplay experience a little bit, some cheats and stuff, some audio changes to have a little bit of fun with it. You can see your speedrun recaps, your model viewers to take a look at like the different character models in the game. I don't think it's really for me worth the points to unlock these things, but they're all there. And then, yeah, you can see the credits and stuff like that. So the new mode, and really quite the highlight of the new experience, I would say, is the rogue mode. So this is a new way to play the game, and it's kind of just like a quick addition to the experience. So this one is called No Return. It's a roguelike survival experience mode. So this is like a deeper dive into more of a combative thing. And you get a range of characters that you kind of unlock and work towards, and some variables in the gameplay too, and there might be some boss stuff. But, you know, you can have Dina, Jesse, Lev, Tommy, and obviously the main characters, Abby and Ellie and stuff like that. And they have different traits and different play styles, and you kind of go in and you do these quick little battles. They're very fast. Like, it's a nice addition, but I don't think it's something people are really gonna spend a lot of time doing, because these little environments, they just basically cut out pieces of the existing maps and areas across the game, and then you're just sort of doing brief, a few minute long or under kind of little battles in them, like sometimes waves, sometimes it's like a countdown thing. There are some differing variables that pop up the more you kind of unlock stuff and the more you play it, but I really just wasn't totally intrigued by this mode, as I thought it would be a little bit more in depth or have a little bit more to it. It's just kind of wave-based stuff, basically, in these small little, it's like you're doing mini horde survival in little areas, and just, you know, gathering some supplies to kind of help you craft some things in order to survive. And yeah, it just really didn't quite fully hit the mark for me in terms of being something truly exciting and different in this one. It's just kind of like a quick sort of addition to the game. It's appreciated as there's a little bit extra value there, but honestly, a little meh, not really too blown away by the mode in the slightest. I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're just kind of revisiting little slices and just doing quick little things, and they give you a little bit of a sense of progression because you're unlocking other things or new characters to play as, or there's some challenges, and then you can unlock some of the extra things that we showed prior to this. It's just kind of a big, okay, you know, it's like, okay, I see they're trying to justify, you know, that there is that upgrade bump in cost and stuff to those players that have gotten this prior. And it's like, is this mode really worth the extra bit? Not really to me, but I don't know, maybe someone will really like this sort of thing, but I was just kind of like, oh, this is not as intensive or as exciting as I was kind of hoping it would be. It just feels a little lackluster, honestly, but I get why it's there. So there's also the lost levels and commentary. So, you know, early development kind of versions of some levels, which is, you know, kind of a neat little thing if you want a little bit more, you know, some cutscene stuff, a new developer commentary, which is a nice touch. There is the upgraded DualSense support, so now the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers are distinctly set up for this particular, you know, version of the game. So that's that's a nice sort of addition to it. It just kind of makes it feel a little bit better if you're into those feature sets from the controller. Is it crazily different from what we saw with the PS4 controller, the DualShock to this one? You know, it's individual thoughts on that, but it's okay. We did mention the guitar play. There's the speed run mode to get your best times, which we kind of talked a little bit. Descriptive audio and speech vibrations have been added as part of the accessibility features. So there was a lot of accessibility features. Now there's some more. Oh, that's just kind of showing that you can upgrade your rogue weapons and tools and stuff between rounds. You go to like this little hub area and you upgrade your assets and everything, and then you go out and you keep going and you kind of do it. Like, I don't know if I really need to explain fully what a rogue type scenario is, but you just kind of like, you know, it's a staggered thing. You do one level, it's just kind of random, and then you go to your little base, you get some tools, you get some stuff. If there's like a drop-off thing, you might earn a reward, and then you just go and you kind of pick, and it's like a split kind of thing. You know, you do one, you do the other, and then you kind of move up the tree, and then when you die, and there's all these different difficulty options. Like, it's thought out, but it's just not very, like, extensive or, like, lengthy in that regard. So, you know, kind of a cool thing. Will it blow you away? I don't know, unless you get like blasted by an enemy or something like that. But it's just kind of all the trademarks of the gameplay kind of just swapped into like a little smaller sort of mode, just to offer a little bit more value to your particular package. So that's really going to come down to the individual of how into the mode you get. I kind of did a bunch of different little runs, and I was kind of like, I just get tired of it really fast. I was like, okay. I was just expecting something a little bit more lengthier and like level complexity or what you're doing in it, and it is just sort of like, oh, okay, you know, they needed something here to kind of justify that extra value cost point, and that's the decision they kind of went with. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but also at the same time I'm sort of just like, I don't know if that would fully entice me to go back and revisit the experience, that little extra thing. Yeah, I just kind of was like, oh, it's a little underwhelming for that particular mode. So let's split directions and let's talk about the game overall. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. It's an experience that has a very lengthy, extensive, and in-depth campaign that will take you tens of hours probably. It is chunky, it is emotional, it is intense. It carries forward the events of the original game. There's a lot more of an emotional connection you would have to that experience if you have played the first one, but I think it does a decent job of kind of getting you into this if this is the only one you want to play. I don't think I'll dive too deep into spoilers, but since it has been many, many years, and, you know, I did review the original version when it came out, and wow, life has changed a lot since then. It's kind of wild, actually. We've even seen the first one, part 1, get re-released or remade or whatever, which is crazy too. But yeah, it is a bit wild. It's a two-perspective setup and scenario. So in the first bit, it's a revenge tale where you've got Ellie heading out across, you know, this area in the country and stuff, and going to this area to basically like seek revenge and figure out what happened and what led to the scenario. And then the latter half of the game, you play as this character called Abby, who's introduced to the game, and that story is a bit of a filling in the gaps of what happens in the first half. So it's a little weird because it's usually like movies do kind of that sort of thing occasionally, just to give you a differing perspective. And to me, like tonally, I always felt the latter half of the game felt a bit weaker or a bit weirder because you had already seen all of this stuff from another perspective. And while it was appreciative to understand more of the effects of your path of like vengeance, seeing that other side, because you know the characters, they all yell each other's names and they all go, oh, and you know, and it's as intensive, and you get to see the other side of it and like what they were dealing with, you know, their thoughts on it. It's a neat perspective that you don't often think of for video games. But at the same time, I was also a little bit like, it's a little different from a film tonally, because you've experienced this as one character, and whether or not you're as interested in seeing this other side of it, it is totally going to be up to the individual, because you're going to be sitting there kind of being like, well, you know, I was sort of motivated from my vengeance standpoint, and then we're seeing this other really, like, Abby is a tough, big, scary character. I forgot how, like, massive and, like, toned that that lady is. She is strong. Yep. Absolute tank. I totally forgot. I was playing some of the segments. I was like, holy. It's like, yeah, I kind of forgot about that part. I didn't really forget about the story because it's been not very long, but you know, it's just from the character's perspective. I was like, oh, I totally forgot about that. And again, that's where like the latter half of the game felt a bit weaker, and then the ending portion, which again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I really wasn't totally into how everything sort of wraps up, as it felt very odd, and I don't think the message they were going for really hit correctly in the way they set it up. And I did think that was a bit of a weaker part of it, which again mirrors my perspective absolutely from when I first reviewed the game a number of years ago. But I do think that the game itself is very, very well done. It was a technical masterpiece of the PlayStation 4 when it released, and it is pushing the boundaries of the PS5, you know, the PlayStation 5, obviously. And while I do appreciate that they took the time to do this sort of upgrade, it is like a cost-based upgrade, so it's really like if you're coming in here for the first time, like this is the first time you're playing this game, this is great value, this is a great upgrade, this is a great showcase for your experience. You know, you get the different graphical modes, you get the different graphical options, you get the full package, you get some extra little things to enjoy. It's nice. It really is. If you're coming back, though, as someone that has like already played this, for me, it felt way too fresh still. And I think that's because the game is so long. Usually, like, shorter games, after a number of years, I'll be fine replaying it and being like, okay, whatever, you know, remaster's nice. But for this one, I really just felt like I was retreading a lengthy experience that I had, like, already gone down that path of. It's a great game, an incredible story. The boundaries they're pushing technically are absolutely incredible. But it's also like, we did revisit this a little bit when it launched on the PS5 and got a bit of a next-gen aware upgrade. And, you know, these upgrades take things a little bit further visually, as we mentioned earlier in the video. But, like, gameplay-wise and stuff, I'm just kind of like, it feels almost like really limiting returns and a bit underwhelming for me from that perspective, where I was just sort of, again, feeling, I've done this, I've played this, I've experienced it. Are these upgrades that intensive visually? The game already looked absolutely amazing and completely pushed the boundaries of what the PS4 could do. And I look at it on the PlayStation 5 and I'm like, yeah, it all runs good, looks great, looks amazing. But I'm like, what really is different here, technically, like visually? I don't, like, I guess maybe some asset improvements, some, you know, they were able to obviously upgrade this and make sure it's really pushing the, you know, the scope of the PlayStation 5, but I don't have that same wow factor. Like, when I played this on the PS4, I was like, holy, this is amazing. There's not really games out there quite like this. And now, years later, we've seen other stuff kind of catch up, and, it, you know, it's still really, really impressive. Probably leaps and bounds around almost every title out there still. From, you know, technical, visual, the depth of the detail of the world, the overgrown fauna, flora, everything like that looks amazing. The characters, the audios, everything is great here. But I was just sort of like, what's the big difference? What's the grab here? What's, you know, grabbing me to come in here? And that's where I think a little bit underwhelming. Like, as a package, and what it, like, passively provides to you is, like, a really good experience. Like, great value, great setup, extra little things. But if you are revisiting it, it's really going to come down to how into this game you are, because it is something that I don't know if they really added quite enough to justify the extra little bit, and I think it's more for the die-hard fans in that, you know, kind of perspective. You can import your save, which was really nice. I guess I should mention that too, but I think that's sort of expected, right? So this game is really quite great. Again, a technical masterpiece from a previous generation, upgraded with all the little bells and whistles of today's era. But it feels so fresh that I don't really, when I think of a remaster, I think of something that is a visual refresher to make an experience feel new and exciting for me to revisit it and be like, I like this one, or oh, I never played this one, but now it's like updated to look decent for today. And I just don't have that sort of exciting glare and, you know, just intrigue that I did the first time around. So I don't think it really hits the mark in that regard, and that's where I go for that word, a bit underwhelming. At the same time, it's a great game. You should definitely play it if you've never experienced it. It is one of the most visually impressive experiences. The performances are incredible. The gameplay is great. There's a great balance of story, puzzle, and everything else that you can do in this game. And it's got some interesting themes that it dives into. And I can't wait to see when they inevitably go further with this franchise, because I'm sure we haven't seen the last of it. Even though we have seen The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered.